Hey everyone, Tristan back with another video, and in this video we are comparing two flagship headphones. These are top-of-the-line headphones by their respective manufacturers. The headphone on the left is the Sony MDR-Z1R, and the headphone on the right is the Audeze LCD-4Z. I'm first going to talk about comfort, style, and fit, and then I will talk about sound quality of each of these headphones and compare and contrast the two of them. First of all, in terms of style, I think they're about equal. I mean, they both look equally as cool. The Sony Z1Rs look a little bit more modern and sleek. The Audeze 4Zs, however, also look kind of modern, but maybe a little bit more retro with the sort of gold mesh on the ear cups. I've said it before, the 4Zs kind of remind me of a 70s guitar amp or something like that, and I think they look very cool. On the other hand, the Z1Rs also, I think, look pretty cool too, with the sort of protruding dome here on the ear cups, and it's just a kind of a cool style. So I would rate them about equal in terms of style and look. In terms of build quality, I would also rate them as pretty much about equal as well. They both are designed and built really well. The Z1Rs are sort of largely hand-built in a certain department within Sony, a smaller department that focuses on a lot of the Sony signature products. The Audeze LCD-4Zs are made in California. And I would say in terms of quality and fit and finish, they both pretty much have kind of an equal fit and finish. Now in terms of comfort, the Sonys are definitely a lot lighter than the 4Zs. So the Sonys definitely win in terms of comfort there. You can wear them longer and they're just more comfortable and they're lighter to wear. Whereas the ear cups on the 4Zs are magnesium metal. So they definitely have more heft to them and weight to them when you're wearing them. But at the same time, the 4Zs are still lighter in weight than prior versions of the Audeze, such as the LCD-4s, which had the wood ear cups and were a bit heavier. I would say that I can wear both of these headphones for extended periods of time and I don't really get any discomfort. But again, the Sony is a little bit lighter and a little bit more comfortable in that respect. In terms of price, the Sony Z1Rs retail for about $2,300. You can often find them less on the sort of gray market or international market. The Audeze LCD-4Zs retail for about $4,000, so there's definitely about a $1,500 price difference there. So that's something to take note of as well. But again, they are both flagship headphones among their line or among their manufacturer. Now in terms of performance and how they sound, you might say, well, the 4Zs are an open back and the Z1Rs are a closed back, so maybe it's not a fair comparison. But I do have to say the Sony Z1Rs do sort of perform and sound almost like an open back headphone. They are pretty wide for being a closed back headphone. And these headphones, despite being a different impedance rating, the Z1Rs are I think 62 ohms and the 4Zs are 15 ohms. They're actually about equivalent in terms of how hard they are to drive. I find that on whatever amp I'm using, the volume level can stay about the same and get the same relative volume control. Maybe slight differences, but pretty similar. So in that respect, they're quite similar in terms of how hard they are to drive. And also this is sort of a good comparison in terms of sound signature as well, because both these headphones tend to be quite warm sounding headphone and have a relatively similar sound signature actually. So let's delve into that a little bit further. The Sony Z1Rs have more of a pronounced bass in general overall. The 4Zs still have a very good bass, but it's just not quite as pronounced, and I think probably the 4Zs are a little bit more accurate in that respect. The mids are also very smooth on both headphones. However, when you go up to the highs, the Z1Rs tend to be a little bit brittle in the highs, have a little bit of a metallic sound in the highs, and also have a little bit of a peak right around 6 kilohertz. So that's something to be aware of as well. And that is probably largely to do with the driver material. The driver material on the Z1R is aluminum magnesium, whereas the Audezes are a planar magnetic driver. So on the Z1Rs, you kind of tend to hear that driver material sometimes with certain tracks. A lot of times guitars can sound a little bit metallic with the Z1Rs because you're pretty much listening or hearing that driver material, whereas the 4Zs are really a lot smoother and a lot more pure and a lot more clear. The other thing on the Audeze 4Zs is you're getting more of a sort of pure and less distorted sound because of the planar magnetic drivers, whereas the Z1Rs are a traditional dynamic drive, which can tend to lead to a bit more distortion across the entire frequency. And that's one thing you notice with these is they tend to just be a little bit more distorted, especially at high volumes when doing listening sessions at high volumes, you get more ear fatigue with these than you do with the 4Zs. So in other words, the Z1Rs tend to be a little bit less smooth, probably a little bit more, for lack of a better word, brutal in terms of the sort of distortion that it outputs, whereas the Audeze 4Zs tend to be a lot more smooth, more clear, and sort of more pure in terms of the sound and the lack of distortion. That being said, it's kind of almost only noticeable when you're doing a direct comparison between these two headphones, and the sort of distortion or whatever on the Z1Rs is not something that's like super pronounced or super noticeable unless you're comparing the two back to back. In general, I would say the Audeze 4Z headphones are capable of a better sound and a more clear sound across the sound spectrum, and less distorted sound overall, and can also be EQ'd really well. Like if you want the 4Zs to sound really bassy, you can use some digital EQ and up the bass a lot, and it would sound really bassy. And the bass note on the Audeze 4Z tend to be more accurate and sort of more complex, whereas on the Z1Rs, a lot of times if you're upping the bass, it tends to sound like a subwoofer just going boom, boom, boom. So these are kind of like almost can be like bass head headphones, especially if you're upping the bass with EQ. Whereas the Audeze 4Zs tend to be more sort of accurate in the bass, and you can hear more complexities in the bass notes when you do that. So all in all, when comparing the Sony Z1Rs to the Audeze 4Zs, it's kind of a tough comparison because they're both flagship headphones. They both sound really great. There is a price difference there, the Audezes being more expensive, but certainly if I had to choose just one headphone, it would be the 4Zs, because they're a more clear, less distorted sound, and overall smoother across the full sound spectrum. The Z1Rs tend to be a little bit bassier, but they also have a metallic tinge to the highs a little bit as well. So my pick out of these two would definitely be the Audeze 4Zs, although they are the more expensive headphone of the two. So thanks for watching my comparison of the Sony MDR-Z1R headphones to the Audeze LCD-4Z headphones. As always, for community and discussion and questions, please see the comments field. For pricing and availability on these two headphones, see the description field, and I will also put a link to the headphone stands I'm using here as well. See you in my next video, and thanks for watching.